Hello and welcome to Beads Make Me Happy, brought to you by Capital City Beads. My name is Christina and this is the video tutorial for our Carnival earrings in turquoise red Picasso. In your kit, you will have all of the beads, thread, and findings needed to create one pair of Carnival earrings. This colorway does come with a cute little sticker. We will be using 6-pound fireline thread and a size 12 beading needle to attach the beads onto these 20mm brass rings. This kit also comes with 14-karat gold-filled hypoallergenic ear wires. We have 3 different colored 2-hole Superduo beads. We will call them red, yellow, and blue. We also have a round 3mm turquoise fire polish bead and tiny little size 11 turquoise beads. Tools are not included in this kit. You will need a needle nose plier with no teeth on the inside to open and close the loop on the ear wire, and a pair of scissors to trim your thread. We are going to start off with 2 feet of thread. Included in this kit is 6 feet of thread. Just in case something gets a little funky and you need to cut it apart and start over, I don't want you to be left stranded without a backup. Measure out 2 feet of thread. Next, we're going to string our needle onto one end of the thread. If you're having a hard time getting this thread inside the eye of the needle, you can use the plier to smash the end of the fire line to help flatten it and make it easier to get inside the needle. Hide the very tip of the thread between your pointer fingers and move it back till there is just a tiny little speck of thread showing. Lay the eye of the needle onto that tiny speck and gently push the thread into the eye. We're not doubling up this thread, just leave enough of a tail to grab onto while you work. Attach the opposite end of the thread to the circle frame. Tie it in a double knot, leaving a 5-inch tail. We are going to tie this tail off at the end, and if it's too short, it'll be really difficult. We're going to start off with that first row of beads that are touching the circle frame. Using basic brick stitch, we're going to attach the fire polish beads with the size 11 beads popping out in between them. Just for these first beads we're attaching, you're going to pick up 1 fire polish, 1 seed bead, and 1 fire polish. Keep the beads on the needle. Pass the needle under the ring and gently pull it all the way through. Try to keep the beads positioned on your finger to help keep them in place. This will make it easier to see where you need to go next. Once you pull the thread all the way through, pass your needle in front of the wire frame and back up that last fire polish bead. Your thread will then wrap around that ring, securing those beads to the ring. Pull your thread all the way through and tighten. The holes of the fire polish bead should be sitting on the frame with the size 11 bead poking out in between them. Next, we're going to string on 1 seed bead and 1 fire polish bead. Pass your needle under the ring and pull all the way through, keeping those beads onto your finger to keep them in place. Pass your needle in front of the ring and back up through that same fire polish bead. Pull your thread all the way through and tighten. That seed bead should be lining up between the fire polish beads. Continue adding 1 seed bead and 1 fire polish bead using the same technique. String on 1 size 11 and 1 fire polish. Pass your needle and thread under the ring and back up through the fire polish bead. Go ahead and hit pause and come back when you have attached 10 fire polish beads onto the ring. I've come to the end and I am now attaching my 10th fire polish bead onto the ring. strung on a size 11 and a fire polish bead, pass the needle under the ring and back up into the fire polish bead. Next, we're going to be adding a yellow superduo between all of the size 11 beads. We are currently coming out of that last fire polish bead, so we need to go through that first size 11 to get in place to add all of these yellow superduos. First step is to get ourselves into that size 11. Pass your needle through that first size 11 seed bead. Pull your thread all the way through. String on one yellow superduo. It doesn't matter which hole, and pass your needle through the next size 11 seed bead. Pull your thread all the way through. Pick up another yellow superduo and pass your needle through the next size 11 bead. Pull your thread all the way through. Continue adding one yellow superduo between each size 11 seed bead. Be sure to pull your thread all the way through each time to prevent knots. Make sure your beads are not twisting and they're lining up nicely between those size 11 seed beads. This next part can be a little tricky. We need to get our needle down to the bottom holes of the yellow superduos and position to start adding beads between those yellow superduos. If we just stick our needle in that bottom hole, there will be an exposed thread on the side of this earring and it will look super sloppy. So we need to move it down in a way that keeps our thread hidden. To do this, we need to go back the way we came, but before we can do that, we have to tie a hitch knot so our beads don't just come undone. Pass your needle in between the first and the second fire polish bead, not inside any bead hole, just between those fire polish beads. Slowly pull your thread through, and before you pull it all the way, pass your needle into the loop that it creates. This will tie a little tiny knot between those beads, securing that thread into place. Next, pass your needle back through that first size 11 seed bead, the top hole of the first yellow superduo, and the next size 11 seed bead. Pull your thread all the way through. You might not be able to do this in one pass, so if you need to do it one bead at a time, pull your thread all the way through each time. You want to be coming out of that second size 11 seed bead. Pull all the way through. Next, we need to tie one more hitch knot between the second size 11 bead and the second superduo. Pass your needle up between the second and third fire polish bead. Pull your thread slowly and pass your needle back down into that loop it creates. This is going to secure our thread in place. Now we gotta go back again. Pass your needle back into the second size 11 and the top hole of the outer superduo. It's going to be a little tricky. These holes are starting to get kind of full, so don't be afraid to wiggle and maneuver your needle to get that needle through where it needs to go. Make sure you're going through that first size 11 seed bead and the top hole of that last outermost superduo. Pull all the way through. You shouldn't see any thread crossing or wrapping around any of these beads. Now we can step down to the next row without making a mess. Pass your needle into the bottom hole of the outer superduo. Next up, we're going to fill the spaces between the yellow superduos with a red superduo and a fire polish bead. You can use that postcard insert as a reference or pull up the picture on our website to see which beads come next. Coming out of the bottom hole of the outer superduo, string on one red superduo, pass your needle into the bottom hole of the next yellow superduo. Pull all the way through. String on one fire polish bead and go through the next superduo. String on one red superduo and go through the next yellow superduo. Pull all the way through. Pick up one more fire polish bead and go through the next superduo. Pull your needle all the way through. Add another red superduo and go through the yellow superduo. Pull all the way through. Your last fire polish bead goes through the next yellow superduo and add that last red superduo and pull all the way through. Now that we're at the end, we've got another little tricky part where we're going to have to tie a couple hitch knots and do another little back and forth to get ourselves down to the bottom to add those seed beads. You should be coming out of the bottom hole of the outermost yellow superduo. We are going to step up into his top hole and go through all the beads till we're coming out of the third size 11 bead. We're going to tie a knot between those two beads and we're going to go back to get ourselves out of the top hole of the second superduo. We're going to step down and then add all of the seed beads. All right, let's do this. Step 1, we're going to pass our needle through the top hole of that superduo and work our way over to the other side of that seed bead. Go through the top hole of the yellow superduo. Pull your needle all the way through. Next, pass your needle through that first size 11 seed bead in the top hole of that second superduo. If you can do it in one pass, great. If not, go through one, pull it through, go through the next, pull it through. It might get a little tricky, but it's okay to do one bead at a time. I accidentally pulled off my needle. That's okay. I'm just going to stick it back on. Next, I'm going to pass my needle through that third size 11 seed bead. This is where we want to come out. Pull all the way through. Stick your needle under the thread between the superduo and the seed bead. My needle is kind of between those two fire polish beads, not in any bead hole, just under the thread. Begin to pull your needle, and before you pull it all the way through, pass your needle through that loop it makes and tie that hitch knot between the two beads. Go nice and slow so your thread doesn't accidentally wrap around that seed bead. Now we're secure and we can go back. Pass your needle back through that size 11 bead and back through the top hole of that second superduo. It's going to be a little tight, so you might need to use your pliers to help you pull that needle through if it's getting a little hard to grip. Pull that needle all the way through, and now we're ready to step down into the bottom hole of that same yellow superduo. You're going to go through that bottom hole and come out before the fire polish bead. Pull your needle all the way through. When I pulled through, my thread wrapped around that red superduo. It's not a problem. I just want to loosen that up a little bit and make sure that I get that back into place so that there's no weird threads crossing over my beads before I proceed. Now we're going to add the size 11 beads around each fire polish bead. String on 5 size 11 seed beads. Skipping the first fire polish bead, pass your needle through the bottom hole of the next yellow superduo, the top hole of the red, and the bottom hole of the following yellow superduo. You should be coming out right before the middle fire polish bead. Pinch those 5 seed beads you just put on into a little point and tighten before moving on to the next set. String on 5 more size 11 seed beads. Skipping that middle fire polish bead, pass your needle through the bottom hole of the next yellow superduo, the top hole of the red superduo, the bottom hole of the following yellow superduo. You should be coming out right before that last fire polish bead in position for the next set of seed beads. Pinch the 5 seed beads you just strung on to turn them into a nice little point and pull tight. You can even use your needle to pull that center seed bead out a little bit and pinch to get them into a nice little triangle shape. String on 5 more seed beads. Skip that last fire polish bead and pass your needle through the bottom hole of the next yellow superduo. You only have to go through that first superduo. You don't have to go all the way to the end. I accidentally picked up an extra seed bead, so there's 6 on there instead of 5. I need to take this out and remove one of those seed beads before we can continue. If you need to go back for any reason, if you made a mistake, always, always, always remove your needle first and gently pull the thread out. If you try to go back with your needle on, you can accidentally create knots inside of the beads, and that's it. You're probably done and you're going to have to take it apart. So if you do have to go back, always remember to remove your needle first, pull your thread out, and start over. Now that I'm back on track, I've got my 5 seed beads on there, and I'm going to pass my needle through the bottom hole of that second to last yellow superduo. Pull nice and tight and make sure those beads are in a nice little point. Okie dokie, we are almost finished. We have one last section of beads to add at the bottom, so we have to work our way down to get into the bottom holes of those red superduos. To do this, we're going to step up into the top hole of that yellow superduo and go back through 2 more superduos and come down and then through the red and back around. You should be coming out of the bottom hole of that second to last superduo. Pass your needle through the top hole of that superduo and pull your thread all the way through. Next, you're going to pass your needle through the seed bead, the superduo, the seed bead, and the superduo. This is going to be tight. It's going to be a little tricky. You got to really maneuver that needle in there. Don't be afraid to bend the beads back to help get the needle into place to pull it all the way through. Be careful not to catch your tail. If you do, just pull it out before continuing. Work your way 1 bead at a time, making sure to go through the seed bead, the top hole of the superduo, the seed bead, and the top hole of the superduo. You want to be coming out of the top hole of the 4th superduo. Next, we're going to step down into the bottom hole of that same superduo you are coming out of and into the top hole of the red superduo right next to it. Pull your thread all the way through. It's like my catchphrase for this particular project. Next, you're going to step down into the bottom hole of that same red superduo. And then you know what to do. Pull it all the way through. Next, we're going to string on a fire polish, a blue superduo, a red superduo, a blue superduo, and 1 more fire polish bead. Pass your needle through the bottom hole of the following red superduo and pull tight to get those beads into place. We are pretty much finished with this project. All we need to do is tie off our thread. To tie this off, we're going to work our way back in and tie a couple hitch knots. Step up into the top hole of the red superduo you are currently coming out of. Pass your needle into that top hole and then the bottom hole of the yellow superduo. Pull your thread all the way through. My thread got stuck on the seed beads. Just pull it out and pull through before proceeding. Next, I'm going to pass my needle through the fire polish and the bottom hole of that next yellow Superduo. Next, you're going to pass your needle through the top hole of that second to last red Superduo. Pull your needle all the way through. These are going to be really tight. Don't be afraid to wiggle it to get that needle where it needs to go. Pull your thread and pull tight. Now we're going to tie a hitch knot between those Superduo beads. Stick your needle between the third and fourth Superduo bead, not in any hole, just between the beads. And before you pull all the way through, pass your needle through the loop it creates and pull tight. Feed your needle back through a few more beads and trim your thread. Next, we're going to tie off this tail from the beginning. Go ahead and take your needle off that other piece and thread it onto the tail. We're going to wrap this tail around the ring. Stick your needle through the ring, wrap the thread around, and go back down through that first fire polish bead. Pull your thread all the way through. We're going to tie a hitch knot right under that fire polish by passing our needle between the two fire polish beads and going back down that loop it creates and tying that knot before going through a few more beads. Hide that thread in that first size 11 and the top hole of that first yellow Superduo. These are going to be super tight, so use your plier to help pull that needle through and trim your thread. I use my needle to pull that center seed bead out on these little turquoise accents. That way it has a nice little point and it looks really sharp on both sides. Using your needle nose pliers, grab onto the loop on the ear wire and gently twist it open. There's no front or back on these earrings. You can hook it on whatever side you want and twist it back closed. Go back to the beginning of this video and make your second earring. Thank you so much for purchasing one of our kits. Please visit our website to shop our fun collection of beading kits and colorful DIY jewelry making supplies at beadsmakemehappy.com.